Winter 1939. The forests along the frozen border of Finland and the Soviet Union were buried under meters of snow. The temperature had dropped to nearly minus 40 degrees. Trees stood silent, like dark shadows against an endless white landscape. For thousands of Soviet soldiers marching through these forests, the war seemed simple at first. Their army was massive, their numbers overwhelming. Many believed victory would come quickly, but within days, something strange began happening at the front. A soldier would be walking through the snow and suddenly fall. No explosion, no visible enemy, no warning, just a single, precise shot. Then another soldier would collapse, then another. Panic slowly spread through the ranks. Officers searched the forests with binoculars, trying to spot the hidden enemy. Patrols were sent out, machine guns fired blindly into the trees, but the forest remained silent. No muzzle flashes, no movement, nothing. At first, Soviet commanders assumed they were facing a team of highly trained snipers working together. That seemed like the only logical explanation. But intelligence reports soon revealed something far more disturbing. All the shots were coming from the same area, the same positions, the same impossible accuracy. It wasn't a sniper team, it was just one man. Hidden somewhere in the endless white wilderness was a quiet Finnish soldier who had grown up hunting in these forests. A man who understood the snow, the wind, and the silence better than anyone else. His name was Simo Häyhä. During the brutal months of the Winter War, he would achieve something that military historians still struggle to comprehend. More than 500 confirmed kills, an almost impossible number for a single sniper. Soon, frightened Soviet soldiers began whispering about a ghost in the snow, a man who appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. They gave him a name that would spread across the entire front line like a dark legend, a name spoken quietly in fear. The White Death. And the most terrifying part of the story was this: almost nobody ever saw him. After the first terrifying report spread across the Soviet front line, one question echoed through the command posts. Who was this invisible sniper? The answer was surprisingly simple. His name was Simo Häyhä. He wasn't a famous soldier, he wasn't a military strategist, and he certainly wasn't a professional assassin. Before the war, he lived a quiet life in the rural countryside of Rautjärvi, a small farming village surrounded by forests, lakes, and long, brutal winters. Life there was simple: hunting, farming, endless work in the cold. But the forests of Finland were the perfect training ground for something few people could imagine. From a very young age, Simo spent countless hours hunting deep in the wilderness. He learned how to move silently through thick snow, how to read tracks in the forest, and most importantly, how to wait. Sometimes he would lie completely still for hours, watching an animal from hundreds of meters away. One breath too loud, one sudden movement, and the hunt would be over. Over the years, his patience became almost unnatural, and his shooting skills became legendary among local hunters. When the Winter War erupted in 1939, the Soviet Union launched a massive invasion into Finland. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops crossed the border with tanks, artillery, and aircraft. Compared to them, Finland's army was small, outnumbered, outgunned. But Finland had one powerful advantage. Its soldiers knew the forests better than anyone else on Earth, and few knew them better than Simo Häyhä. He was assigned a simple role: sniper. His weapon was a modified version of the famous Mosin Nagant M/28-30, a rugged bolt-action rifle known for its reliability in extreme cold. But there was something unusual about the way Simo used it. Unlike most snipers, he refused to use a telescopic scope. Instead, he relied only on the rifle's iron sights. To many soldiers, that decision seemed strange, even foolish. But Simo understood something others didn't. A sniper scope could reflect sunlight. Just one tiny flash of light was enough to reveal a sniper's position in the silent white forests of Finland. That flash could mean death. So he chose the simplest method. No scope, no shine, no trace. Just a man, a rifle, and the endless snow. And soon, the forests of Finland would turn him into something far more terrifying than a soldier. A legend the enemy would begin to fear. As the war continued, Simo Häyhä began turning the frozen forests of Finland into the perfect hunting ground. But what made him so deadly wasn't just his accuracy. It was his patience and his understanding of the winter itself. The Winter War was fought in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. Temperatures often dropped below -40 degrees. Snow covered the ground in thick layers, and the forests were silent for miles. For many soldiers, this environment was unbearable. For Simo, it was home. He dressed entirely in white camouflage, blending perfectly with the snow-covered landscape. From a distance, he became almost invisible. Then he would choose a position, sometimes behind a snowbank, sometimes between frozen trees. And then he would wait. Hours could pass without movement. But Simo prepared for everything. To prevent the steam from his breath from revealing his position in the freezing air, he would pack snow into his mouth. This reduced the visible vapor when he exhaled. He also carefully packed snow in front of his rifle. This stabilized the weapon and prevented the shot from throwing loose powder into the air. Every small detail mattered. And when the moment came, he fired only once. One shot, one target, then silence again. Soviet soldiers soon realized they were facing something terrifying. Men would fall suddenly while crossing open areas. Patrols would disappear. Entire units began to move more slowly through the forests, afraid of every shadow. Rumors spread quickly along the front line. Some soldiers believed there were dozens of hidden Finnish snipers. Others believed something even stranger, that the forests themselves were fighting back. But eventually, they learned the truth. Most of these shots came from one man. Soon, Soviet troops gave him a name that would become legendary, the White Death. And day after day, the numbers kept growing. 10 targets, 20, sometimes even more, in a single day. By the end of his campaign, historians estimate that Simo Häyhä had achieved over 500 confirmed kills, an almost unbelievable record. But the war was not finished yet, and the Soviet army was determined to stop him. By early 1940, the legend of Simo Häyhä had spread across the entire front of the Winter War. Soviet commanders were desperate to stop him. They sent counter-snipers into the forests. Artillery units were ordered to bombard areas where he was believed to be hiding. Entire sections of forest were shelled, hoping that somewhere in the explosions, the mysterious sniper would finally be killed. But for weeks, he survived. Until one day, March 6, 1940, a Soviet sniper finally spotted him. A single shot echoed across the frozen forest. The bullet struck Simo Häyhä directly in the face, shattering part of his jaw and leaving him unconscious in the snow. For hours, he lay motionless on the battlefield. Many believed the legend of the White Death had finally come to an end. But incredibly, he was still alive. Miraculously, Simo Häyhä survived the devastating wound. When he finally regained consciousness, it was the very day the Winter War came to an end. Doctors spent years reconstructing his shattered jaw, and his face was permanently changed. But despite everything, he lived a long and quiet life in Finland. He avoided fame, rarely spoke about the war, and returned to the peaceful life he had always known, hunting and living close to nature. When journalists once asked him the secret behind his incredible accuracy, his answer was surprisingly simple: practice. No dramatic speeches, no pride, just the quiet words of a man who had become a legend. Today, historians still consider Simo Häyhä the most lethal sniper in military history, the silent soldier the enemy once feared as the White Death.